Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel so you do not miss the next time that I do post. On this channel, I post lifestyle content, beauty content, fashion content, and some nursing school content as well. So if you're interested, make sure you definitely hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications. For today's video, I do want to talk about what is the difference between a traditional BSN program and an accelerated BSN. The main difference between a traditional nursing school and an accelerated BSN is the fact that a traditional program is going to be longer than the accelerated. The accelerated means you're doing it at a faster pace. You're completing and getting your BSN a lot faster, a lot quicker than you would have been if you did the traditional route. Now, traditional nursing school, especially for BSN, is going to take 4 years minimum. And I say minimum because if you might have to retake a class, like you go half-time, you're not a full-time student, it will take a longer period of time. But minimum is going to take 4 years for a traditional program. Now, for an accelerated, it can take you anywhere from 11 months to around 18 months. I am choosing to go the accelerated route, and it's going to take me around a year. It's not really a full year, but it's a little under a year. So we'll just say a year for me to complete my program. And I will be starting in September and I'll end in August of next year. The next thing that I would say is a big difference between the structure of these two different programs is that with the traditional route, you usually are taking your prereqs your first 2 years, and then in like your sophomore year, you're applying to the actual nursing school, and that's when you'll be taking your nursing school classes. If you do the accelerated way, you would have already have taken your prereqs that you need in order to apply to nursing school before you even apply to an accelerated programs. There are some accelerated programs that allow you to have not finished or complete all of your prereqs before you apply, but many, if not most, do require you to be done with your prereqs in order to even apply for their program. So I will say that's a big difference in why the traditional route and the accelerated route have a different timeline. If you do the traditional, you're taking your prereqs, right? While you're in that program to be able to actually go to their nursing. And whether or not you can actually be in their nursing school is contingent on whether or not you pass your prereqs. So if you don't pass your prereqs, even if you were already in their program, you're delaying whether you can actually go into and take those nursing courses. So if you don't do well in your prereqs, they might not allow you to continue within that major. You might have to switch major or just retake those classes till you get a satisfactory grade, which once again, that's going to extend the length of time that you're in school. With the ABSN, accelerated BSN, you would have had to have done well in your prereqs and are now applying. So that doesn't really matter to you. You just want to make sure your grades are pretty good. The next thing that I will say that really differentiates between the two is how many classes you're taking at once. With an accelerated program, because you're doing it so fast, you usually are taking a lot more classes than if you were to go the traditional route, where you can take maybe like 3-4 classes a semester. You're not maybe doing clinicals at the same time you're taking classes in a traditional route. But in an accelerated route, you're usually taking your clinicals the same time you're taking your classes, and that makes it a lot more intense because you have to juggle all these things. You have to make sure you're doing well in your classes, you have to make sure you're doing well in your clinicals, and you have to be just showing up at all times. So that can be very challenging versus in a traditional program, you might be taking less classes when you are taking clinicals, or some programs you do a whole semester where it's just clinicals and you after you've taken all of your actual classes. So that can also vary based on the school and the program that you are in. So I will keep that in mind. The last thing that I will say is the cost. And I know for a lot of people, this is like a big one. Some accelerate programs are not crazy expensive. It depends on where you go, if it's a private or if it's a public school. But usually I will say accelerate programs do tend to be on the pricier side because you're doing a lot in a shorter time. You're taking more courses, and college typically bill you by the amount of classes you're taking per semester. So if you're taking more classes, that's more money, right? That they're going to bill you. And if you think about it, because you're completing a lot in such a short span of time, that's a lot of money that you're spending in a short span of time versus over a 4-year period. It might seem to be like less money. So I will also suggest thinking about that. In addition, where you're able to take these classes. ABSN program isn't as widely offered and available as a traditional 4-year BSN program. So I will say that is something to keep in mind. You might be very limited in your options and availability for ABSN programs compared to the traditional 4-year degree when it comes to nursing. Both of these have its pros and its cons. Like neither one is like, better than the other. It might be better suited to your situation, because for me, the ABSN route just made the most sense because I already have a college degree and I already had taken most of the prereqs that I needed for nursing school. So going to a program that didn't require me to go and take 2 years worth of like prereqs and gen ed class when I've already done something like that with my other degree just made the most sense. For someone else who maybe you didn't take like any of the prereqs at all, it would make sense to maybe do the 4-year route because it's basically the same thing. And with ABSN, it's considered a second degree, so it's very hard to get financial aid. I should have mentioned that when I mentioned the cost, which is why sometimes it's a bit more expensive to go the ABSN route, because if you do that, you already have a degree, you are less likely to get financial aid. I don't believe you're eligible for the Pell Grant if you already have a degree. So things like that does make it a little bit more nuanced, and why you should really think out your pros and your cons and weigh out which might be best for you. There's also other ways that you can do this. Maybe I can make a different video because you don't need to go all the way to your BSN. You can do LPN, right? If you don't want to be like BSN RN, you can do an LPN, which is a licensed practical nurse, or LVN, which is the same thing. It's just different states call it different things. So LVN is licensed vocational nurse, but it's the same thing as an LPN, just called by a different name. So that is less schooling than your BSN. But then once you have your LPN, you can do a bridge program from an LPN to a BSN RN. But you can start working as a nurse, and then you can like usually have your job pay for you to go back to get the BSN. Usually, not always the case, but a lot of places, especially hospital, do offer that, or they offer you tuition assistance. And the other thing is you can do an ADN, which is an associate degree in nursing instead of a BSN. Again, it's going to be less schooling. You can also start working as a nurse, but it's not the BSN. BSN gets paid the most because it's more of an advanced degree. You go to schooling for longer. It's more in depth what you learn. So that's why you get paid more than the others. But like I said, there's so many different ways, routes, and avenues in order to become a nurse. But I really wanted to mostly focus on the BSN. That's usually the one that a lot of people do choose to go for. Nothing wrong if you do ADN or LPN. Like, I'm not going to sit here like one is better than the other, because it's not. We're all nurses. You're all nurses, because I don't have it yet, right? But you are all nurses if you're an ADN, if you're an LPN, or if you are a BSN RN. Like, it does not matter. So that's how I view it, because there have been so many debates about which, like, you're not considered a real nurse if you're like an LPN. And I'm not with the nonsense. Like, that's not me. you worked for your license, right? And you do the work of a nurse, so therefore you are a nurse. That's it, period. Not arguing. Like, you can go argue with whoever else, just not me about it. But really that's really what I have to say about this topic. If you guys have any questions or concerns, if you want to know a bit more about like the ADN LPN route in doing that and then bridging over to your RN, I can talk a little bit more about that. I would have to do a bit more research. I do have a family member who did the ADN to BSN route, and it wasn't bad because she was able to do it online while working as a nurse. So it's definitely doable, and it's not a hard thing to do from my understanding. So let me know if you guys have any questions. As always, drop any comments that you guys have down below, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye, guys.